20. Sorry. Exodus chapter 20. I was really surprised. I was thinking I could just kind of walk through the Ten Commandments quickly, but there's so much written on these topics. It just takes praise and run like crazy. I mean, I've probably read 85 pages, different books over this past week on this topic alone, all kinds of stuff in here. So I've paired to a bunch of it to share with you, which speaks to our issue today. But let me read the text first of all, verses 4 through 6. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. Greg Beale, in his book entitled We Become What We Worship, it's an interesting book. He says, at the core of our beings, we are imaging creatures. It is not possible to be neutral on this issue, either reflect the Creator or something in the creation. Christopher Wright, in his book, The Mission of God, says, the primal problem with idolatry is that it blurs the distinction between the Creator God and the creation. This both damages creation and diminishes the glory of the Creator. Idolatry, which this commandment speaks to directly, is an assault on God's glory. And God's word has many harsh things to say about it, and the punishments are even harsher. A couple of things. In all ancient temples, the proof of the deity's presence was a statue. Titus, when he walked into the temple in Jerusalem in 70 A.D., tore open the veil and goes, "Where's your God?" He was expecting to see a big idol in there. Well, you people worship something you can't see? He just made fun of it. In neither Egypt nor Mesopotamia did religious leaders at least believe that the statue was the god, or that it was confined to him. Nevertheless, he was believed to be in the statue. Unquote. Pagan worshippers could not conceive of a deity that they could not see. Therefore, images and idols were necessary, writes one commentator. In the ancient Near East, the manufacture of idols included special ceremonies to attract the deity from the heavens into the idol. Once present in the idol, the deity would be accessible and available to benefit its worshippers. The Near Eastern cultures around Jerusalem that existed around Israel were saturated in idol worship. Mesopotamia had numerous idols: Syria, Babylon, Egypt. The Roman Empire had all kinds of idol worship. Temples to the gods. Greek culture and many nations in Canaan and Palestine were all idol-worshipping nations. Baal was the primary one. When someone gave homage to an idol, they believed that the life of the god was present in the idol or the statue. Somehow the god added stone, metal, or wood. And when a devotee brought any kind of offering, the devotee gave evidence that they believed the image was alive with the spirit of the god. The common Hebrew word translated for idol, in this case, or graven image, is the word pasel. And it was used for imagery of any kind, and generally refers to idols made out of wood or stone. The verb form of the word means to hew or to carve something. So they're connected in that regard. It's used by Moses of carving the 2 tablets that the 10 Commandments are written on. Is the use of Hiram, who was hired by Solomon to construct the tabernacle of the temple in 1 Kings chapter 5. Isaiah speaks about this in Isaiah chapter 40. An idol, a craftsman cast it, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold and cast for it silver chains. Or what John read this morning, Isaiah 44 verse 10, who fashions a god or casts an idol that is profitable for nothing? God says idols made of any substance, formed of things above, things below, or things under the earth are not allowed. Simple as all that. The Hebrew word translated likeness or shape, go back to verse 4 for a moment. You shall not make for yourselves a carved image or any likeness. The word likeness right there is also a term which can be translated idol. But it has a different, leans in a different direction. There are idols that can be on flat surfaces, 2-dimensional. This word refers to idols that are 3-dimensional. Like when you think of an idol. A fully carved, self-standing alone type of image. That's what that word means right there. There's another Hebrew word which literally translates that which is poured out. I've been in a few foreign countries, walked through the marketplaces and stuff, and there's these little poured out idols. Porcelain. I was in Rome one time and bought a little thing that sat in my office for decades of Moses. 2 little horns sticking out of his head. I think it was a Parthenon in Rome. In some regards, some people said, what are you doing with an idol in your office, Mark? I said, oh, that's Moses, he's okay. Psalm 115 verses 4 through 7 kind of summarizes the Old Testament ideas about idols. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths, but they do not speak. They have eyes, but do not see. They have ears, but do not hear. Noses, but do not smell. They have hands, but they do not feel. Feet, but do not walk. And they do not make a sound in their throat. So let's ask an interesting question. I got 2 questions on your outline here. What makes idols so enticing? Now, the truth of the matter is most of us, the whole idea, I've seen a few people running around with a little St. Christopher hanging over on their windshield, on their rearview mirror. I thought, that's an idol. Or something standing on their dashboard. I don't know if it's an idol or not, but it feels that way to me. Wouldn't it? I read a book many years ago called Joshua, written by a guy, I can't remember his last name, but he was a retired Catholic priest. He wrote a series of books based upon a character named Joshua, and it's his idea of what Jesus would be like in the 21st or 20th century. And he was asked in the story to build or to carve out an image for a Jewish temple in southern New York somewhere. Pretty interesting little story. And he goes about carving this image out. And I wonder if Jesus would actually do such a thing. We'll come to that in a minute. So, what is so enticing about idols to people? And here are 4 things that I've discovered. And first of all, in the ancient world, idolatry was a physical way of feeling like you were being heard. When you pray, you don't get the answer you're looking for. Are you asking yourself the question, did he hear me? Am I being heard? Because when you pray, you can't see the person you're praying to. If you write a letter to somebody, I got a letter back my Christmas letter came back in the mail from somebody, and I thought, what's going on here? They didn't get the message. And so idolatry was a popular thing because people felt like they were being heard. The ancients believed that once a statue was carved and the incantations were said over it, that the god who entered the statue and functioned as a connection between the person who owned the idol and the god it represented was actually being heard when they spoke to the idol. As a matter of fact, voodoo is based on that precept. If you can take a doll and stick pins in it and someone else has headaches as a result of that, or they get all messed up, where does that come from? That is rooted in the whole idol worship business. It's a long story, but trust me. Secondly, the gods could do anything but feed themselves. The second answer to that question is, and when you fed a god, have you ever seen these pictures of idols in people's homes in the third world, like India and so forth? They have all this food laying out in front of the idol. Well, that's based on this idea. They actually believe that you feed the god because they can't feed themselves. What's with that? He is obligated to pay you back in a quid pro quo kind of a way. He's obligated to you. So bring nice food. This was the overwhelming way of the life in the ancient world. Everyone had idols, and culture was designed around it. It dominated every people group in the known world. There's a third reason in here. Idol worship was convenient and unconcerned with behavior. It was only marked by ritualism, and food was often involved. Idol worship was simply easy by comparison to God's moral order and the obedience that was attached to it. Now, in God's commands, you had to obey God. In idol worship, there's a second issue right here. When you worship God, you had to leave your dwelling, wherever you live, and go to Jerusalem. The further away, if you lived in Zebulun, you had to travel for 3 days. Idol worship is you got the guy right in your house, and it just take you 3 minutes. Out where you go, everything's good. So convenient. So idol worship was very convenient. Plus, it's a great little side business. You know, the people in Ephesus were selling these things. You guys are messing with our side business here. It's very convenient to have idols. And the fourth thing, it's a little bit more challenging. Let me read something to you. Temple prostitution described in the Old Testament was closely connected to idols because part of idol worship was designed to secure the blessings of home, field, and stall. So there's this, and Baal worship was very, very intrusive into Israel's life because of that. And prostitution, male prostitution and so forth, some of the goddesses of the ancient world were women goddesses who nurtured the whole industry of sex, prostitution. Every ancient temple in Greece had prostitutes connected to one way or the other, male or female. Ritual worship that involved sex was common, believing that it would cause and inflame the gods to bless the womb, bless the field, and bless the stall. Ritual idol worship sometimes involves sex. 2 Kings chapter 23, verses 6 and 7. And this is Josiah. He's trying to clean up this mess in Jerusalem. Look how difficult it is. And he brought out the Asherah from the house of the Lord, Asherah poles, outside Jerusalem to the brook Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and beat it to dust, and cast the dust of it upon the graves of the common people. And he broke down the houses of the male cult prostitutes who were in the house of the Lord. They set up booths in the temple in Jerusalem, where the women wove hangings for the Asherah. It took a serious effort on Josiah's part simply to eliminate this piece, this enticing part of idol worship. And I want to add a fifth thing in here that's not on your list. I was reading this morning and I came across a thought. It's like, I haven't really thought about that. Think about this. If you have to pick between audio or a video, which would you pick? obvious one. The human being in the modern world is very attuned to the video. When I was a kid, guess what? We crowded around the radio. We listened to how trials would turn out by listening to the radio. We all, what's going to happen to Richard Speck? I can remember that like it happened yesterday. Nowadays, we just turn on CNN. They have 24/7 news going on, and they show you all these video clips and stuff like that. So, Rabbi Zacharias said one time when I was in a meeting he was speaking at, the truth of the matter is that the whole video world has stolen us of our imagination. Just ripped it out of our minds. As a matter of fact, idols rip out of our minds our imagination about the greatness of God and His glory. That's what they do. Let's ask another question. What makes idolatry so detestable to God? Hold that your finger in your Bible, turn it to Isaiah chapter 6. It's really interesting what Isaiah is doing here, but I'll explain it in a minute. Chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the foundations of the thresholds shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, Woe is me, for I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of the people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken with tongs from the altar, and he touched my mouth and said, Behold, this has touched your lips, your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Deuteronomy chapter 29, I'll come back to that text in a minute, verses 16 through 28 gives us God's thoughts or promises concerning this sinful activity of idolatry. Think about this. Deuteronomy was written after Exodus 32, when the people, while Moses was on Mount Sinai, asked Aaron, create something we can see. And out of this pile of gold came this golden calf. Well, that golden calf never goes away in Israel's history. He's forever keep popping up out of the gold. So the book of Deuteronomy was written after what happened in Exodus 32. Now listen to what it says in that text. Turn over there to Deuteronomy chapter 29 just for a moment. I want to read that little section to you. It's important that you see it. Verse 16. You know how we lived in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the midst of the nations through which you passed. And you have seen their detestable things, their idols of wood and stone, of silver and gold, which were among them. Beware lest there be among you a man or a woman or a clan or a tribe whose heart is turning away today from the God of our fathers to go and serve the gods of those nations. Beware lest there be among you a root bearing poisonous and bitter fruit. One who, when he hears the words is sworn covenant, blesses himself in his heart, saying, I shall be safe though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. This will lead to the sweeping away of moist and dry alike. The Lord will not be willing to forgive him, but rather the anger of the Lord and his jealousy will smoke against this man, and the curses written in this book will settle upon him, and the Lord will blot out his name from under heaven. And the Lord will single him out from all the tribes of Israel for calamity, in accordance with all the curses of the covenant written in his book of the law. And the next generation, your children who rise up after you, and the foreigner who comes from a far land will say, when they see the afflictions of that land and the sickness with which the Lord had made it sick. The whole land burned out with brimstone and salt, nothing sown and nothing growing, where no plant can sprout. An overthrow like that of Sodom and Gomorrah, Adamah and Zebulun, which the Lord overthrew in his wrath and his anger. All the nations will say, why has the Lord done this to this land? What caused the heat of his great anger? Then people will say, it's because they abandoned the covenant of the Lord, the God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Egypt, and went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they had not known, and whom he had not allotted to them. Therefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land, bringing upon it all the curses written in this book. And the Lord uprooted them from their land in anger and fury and great wrath, and cast them into another land, as they are this day. The truth of the matter is that the sin which Israel committed at the golden calf was the sin of the first generation. So Moses reflects on this in Deuteronomy chapter 29 and says, don't you dare go there. And he lists some horrible results in that text. Do not serve idols, because God is very unhappy about that. After everything that God had done for Israel, for them to make an idol really disturbed God. I want to give you 4 things that define and kind of summarize this for me. The first one, the theophany of Sinai was only heard. How do you make an image of something you hear? Suppose God did that on purpose. If Jesus had come during the era of the iPhone, we'd have thousands and millions of pictures of him. That was not God's purpose. The theophany, the presentation of God at Sinai that we're involved in right here, people just heard God speak. Secondly, God's revelation of himself is his alone. We have no part in it. That's why God is so incensed by this. I will reveal myself the way I want to reveal myself. Do not get involved in this. Don't pretend like you're a small part of it. This is my business. When someone does a caricature or someone does a book review, we either like it or read it. That's not what I really look like. Or that's not what I was trying to say in my book. We don't like it when people step on our territory, do we? Well, where do we get that notion? We get it from God. We step on his territory and we make an idol out of it, in any sense of that word. We'll apply that to us in the 21st century at the end. Third, there is no created object that properly represents God. I remember as a young pastor trying to come up with a good illustration for the Trinity. That's a waste of time. There are none. We keep trying though. God says, you know what? Just tell them all about it. Don't try to come up with an illustration. They all fall short in the end. And fourth, idols are always a distortion of the one true God. There's an interesting phrase in verse 5, I think it is. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. Let me just put that in context. In the Old Testament, that word jealousy is most closely associated with marriage. It is a natural thing for a wife to be jealous that any other woman is looking at her husband. It's a natural thing for a husband to be jealous if another man is looking at his wife. It's just a natural thing. We expect that to be the case. Well, our culture today is kind of weird. People do some strange things. But that's a natural thing. And that is connected to the relations between God and idols. When we pursue an idol, God is incredibly jealous. Because we belong to him. He chose us. We are his beloved. He's not very happy with that connection in any sense of that word. He will accept no compensation, it says in Proverbs 6, verse 34 and 35. For jealousy makes a man furious, and he will not spare when he takes revenge. He will accept no compensation. He will refuse, though you multiply gifts. If you jealously chase some other man's wife, expect that he's going to be furious with you. He's going to get more than his pound of flesh. The biblical idea of jealousy is rooted in a fervent and passionate protection of what is rightfully God's. God is so serious about that. He says, I will visit the iniquity to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Now, let's go to that little piece of the text right there at the end of verse 5. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Here's what I want to say about that. In the grand scheme of things, the most important thing, the worst thing you can do as a parent is to be idolatrous. If you put something in front of God, and we'll get to that in a minute, you create an idolatrous and iniquitous pattern which leaks into your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and one more, 4 generations. The Old Testament speaks of sins and iniquities. They are not the same. Sins are momentary issues where we miss the mark, we disobey God, we make a bad choice, we make a foolish decision. Iniquity is a pattern of making poor choices, leaning in the wrong direction and gravitating towards the wrong crowd. That's an iniquity. And idolatry fits in the category of iniquity. It is often generational, even if it manifests itself in different actions and choices. It is nonetheless a pattern that weaves its way through families and people groups. Consider this truncated list. Patterns of unforgiveness. Patterns of addiction. Patterns of greed. Patterns of pride. Patterns of willfulness. Patterns of stubbornness. Patterns of foolishness. Patterns of laziness. Each manifesting pattern can be an iniquity that begins and runs through a family, through the men in the family, through the women in the family, through the work ethic of a family, through the reputation of a family, through a clan, or even a whole nation. God is saying that idolatry is one of those patterns, an iniquity that weaves its way through families and results in generations that dishonor God and that God hates. Nevertheless, there's good news. Look at the rest of that text. But showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. I'll connect that at the end. I have 9 conclusions, which I'll try to cram in 6 minutes. First, any worship of the creaturely is a violation of the second commandment. There's an issue in this. There's a question here. Is God just saying don't make any idols of me, or is he saying don't make any idols of anything? I would suggest to you he's saying do not make idols of anything. Any worship of the creaturely is a violation of the second commandment. Don't take things that God made and turn it into an idol. Second, from Isaiah 6, worshiping idols makes the hard heart to the things of God. Go back to verse 9. And he said, go and say to this people, keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Make the heart of this people dull and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and turn to be healed. Then I said, how long, O Lord? He said, until cities lie waste without inhabitant, and houses without people, and the land is a desolate waste, and the Lord removes people far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. And though a tenth remain in it, it will be burned away like a terebinth or an oak whose stump remains when it is felled. The holy seed is its stump. God saved Isaiah from this idol worshippers, those idol worshippers in Judah, but he kept them there to speak truth to them. Isaiah became God's mouthpiece in that text in Judah, speaking words that no idol could speak. nonetheless words that Israel needed to hear from God. A third one, when we worship idols, God hardens our heart. Third, iniquity and disobedience carry on a patterned way through a family or a nation, but love and obedience of God is a blessing, one person at a time. I like this, and here's why. If you're caught, if you don't get to pick the family you're part of. I called my uncle one day, I said, Philip, what's the iniquity in our family? He named it before I said the word iniquity. He knew exactly what it was. So for the next hour, we chit-chatted about what that iniquity is all about. And I said, what do we do about that? He didn't say this right here, but he said that essentially. You know, iniquities, they travel through families and all kinds of stuff, and they just come at you. If you were born into a family that has addiction problems, that's just how you arrive. But when we honor God and make a different choice, God stands with us to fight that iniquity for the rest of our life. We can turn a different direction by the power of the Holy Spirit and walk in a different way. Idolatry is in that category, along with everything else that we listed before. You can change your life if you make the right choices and honor and obey God. That's the point of this whole thing right here. I take that to mean that what I do as a father, what you do as a mother, have generational implications. But you can make a choice. The Hebrew word translated love in verse 6 has said, and God has a covenant with his people, and he will come alongside of us and pull us out of that mess to walk in a different direction. I could have spent some time giving you a bunch of illustrations, but I won't. Here's the fourth one. Anything that takes God's place is an idol that I am worshiping. Fifth, Adam in his state of innocence was an image bearer of God. Think about this for a minute. God says, I created this image of myself. The first image I created was man. Oh. And yet he was not God. It's ironic that those who make idols of God are made in God's image. That's what, just think about that. What does it say in Colossians 1 verse 5? Someone did arrive who was the perfect image of God. Jesus Christ. Why would we think for a moment that anything creaturely could possibly image God if the real God incarnate arrived on earth? So idolatry is just a known, it's complete off-the-charts nonsense, and God hates it with every fiber of his being. Sixth, Mark Booker, in his book on idolatry, says the powerful suzerains of the ancient Near East wanted their images everywhere. The true God wants just the opposite, because any image would diminish his power and glory. An idol that is manufactured and thus inherently finite could not possibly represent God, who alone is infinite. An image is limited, whereas God is unlimited. An image is material, whereas God's spiritual. Therefore, wrong thoughts about God will always lead to wrong behavior. Idolatry represents a messed up heart towards God. You don't understand God properly. 7. We become and are blessed by what we worship. I want to read Numbers chapter 6, verse 24 through 26 to you. Numerous times, and I have this an understanding of Numbers 6 until I came across this past week. Numbers 6, 24 through 26. God tells Aaron, raise your hands and bless my people. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Well, there's all kinds of imagery and all that stuff right there. But think about that in the context of this particular commandment. The very face of God can shine upon me. The very face of God can shine upon me. The very countenance of God can overshadow me if I worship him alone and worship him in spirit and in truth. No idols. How is that possible? Aaron was reminding God's people that what happened to Moses can happen to them as they worship God properly. What happened to Moses when he went up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights? He came back booming. He was just covered in glory, the glory of God. If we worship God properly, that can happen in our life. Right out of our hearts. In the story of Israel, we find two words that are related to worshiping the golden calf. The phrase is stiff-necked and stubborn. And they exclusively refer to Israel's rebellious heart towards the one true God. They had the neck of an ox and the stubbornness of a mule because they worshiped down like this instead of like this to the one true God. Their stiff-necked and their stubborn hearts was because they were simply bent towards things that could never take care of their needs. That's what idolatry is. It's bending towards something that could never take care of my needs. It's interesting. When Solomon died, Rehoboam created a problem, and the kingdom split. And Jeroboam, who was a thorn in Solomon's flesh, who was in Egypt, was called back. And the 10 northern tribes formed the 10 northern tribes of Israel. And their first king was a guy named Jeroboam. And what did Jeroboam do? I need to stop the people from going down to Jerusalem and worshiping in that temple. So what did he do? He created 2 golden calves. And the rest of the story is well known. They just went off into absolute, total, unmitigated idolatry. And God destroyed the 10 northern tribes, and they are scattered amongst the nations today. 8. The modern idol is self. Autonomy, personal goals, individual freedoms. It's a way of the world, and God is called upon to put his stamp of approval on it. We have replaced idols with wallets and investment accounts to secure our future, and we have replaced trust in God's provision with the idol of human cleverness and proper planning. Jesus condemned the leaders of the Jews in his day because they had made idols of tradition and prophesied that God would take the nations away from them and give it to those who would produce fruits that he was looking for. This was the spiritual blindness and deafness of Israel when Jesus arrived, and that reflects the idolatry that Isaiah speaks about in chapter 6, verses 9 through 13. We idolize things of earth. In John's first epistle, he concludes with these words, "Guard yourselves against idols." And likely means that the truth leads to the worship of one true God alone. All other truth claims lead to idolatry. Read a fascinating article this past week about the idolatry of celebrity preachers. That has leaked into the evangelicalism across our country. One last one. Idols of God always result in a breakdown in my relationship with God's creation. When I pervert the worship of the one true God with idols, I lay the groundwork for perverted human relationships and shipwreck all of my life. Think about this. Would the one true God ever let me live with him in second place? Making a person or an object in life or a personal goal be more important to me than he is. Would he let that happen? Here's what's going to happen. If you pick your kids, if you pick your marriage, if you pick your job, if you pick a certain amount of money, whatever that might be, if you pick those things and put them in front of God, he will systematically see to it that those things are destroyed. He is insanely jealous for your absolute, undivided loyalty. That's who God is. Let's stop there. There's one more piece to that, and that's the end. Okay? Let's pray. Father, that's kind of an abrupt ending, but I pray that you will just take this whole precept and sink it into our hearts. I know I didn't come to this text thinking I was an idolater, but there certainly are things in my life that are really important to me, and yet your word says, that's too important for you, Mark. You put me in my proper place. So we come, Lord, with a heart that puts you in the proper place in our life, so that nothing confuses people around us